Today on the show, we have an awesome guest that's going to be joining us. We're going to be talking about Xbox accessibility features and getting some real first-hand experience, knowledge, insights about what's working and what's not working with accessibility features on Xbox. Let's get into that episode right now. Hey everybody, welcome to Xbox A. I'm Matt, that's Court, and special guest today, Markus McCracken. Good to have you on the show, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
No worries. So, Markus, give everybody a little bit of the Cole's notes of your history with Xbox, your background, and what really brings you to the show, what we're talking about today.
Okay, so my name is Markus McCracken. I'm a program volunteer for the Canadian National Institute for the Blind. I was born legally blind. I have glaucoma. And a few years ago, my vision decided to deteriorate a little bit more. So to give an example, on a foggy day, and with that fog not lifting, that is what I see on a constant basis. I, up until maybe a year ago, thought my gaming days were over, and I somehow found Steve Saylor and the game Just The Last of Us Part 2 on the PlayStation 4. I hummed and hawed and eventually bought it, and that's when I realized I can get back into gaming. And then the new generation systems came out, and I started researching accessibility on consoles, and that brought me right back to Microsoft and Xbox. And the accessibility for me is extremely exciting. Just using the dashboard alone, I rely a lot on the narrator that Microsoft has included. I'm still learning a lot of the features, but just being able to play games again was extremely exciting for myself. And now I am teaching others within the CNIB that gaming is still very much doable and hoping to get more people involved in the gaming world.
Markus, do you find that with your role and what you're doing within the community, do you find that people are surprised that that Xbox has these features available? Or are a lot of people that you interact with, are they like, oh, I had no idea that you could do all of these different things, or adaptive controllers or anything like that?
A lot of them are surprised. I was extremely surprised to see how far they've come, because when I was always a gamer, so I would never have thought to look for settings such as narrator, for instance.
Yeah.
So I was extremely surprised to see how far everything has come, especially when I started getting back into games. Just knowing that I can play a game, actually turn the system on and have it speak to me so I know what I'm doing, and put the game on, and with any luck, some games, the narration is there. It's work in progress, but it is there. So I'm finding I have a program actually running for 4 weeks. I call it Get Back Into the Game. And I have had a couple participants extremely surprised and excited to learn more about it. So I'm extremely happy that I'm being able to teach others, and with any luck, I'll be able to break more into the business and helping the developers.
That's awesome.
Now, Markus, you speak of the narration. We spoke before the show. I was wondering, because the store has these accessibility markers on them, but you mentioned to us you can't see them. Is the Xbox store also narrated?
Everything on the Xbox is narrated. However, in the store, at one point when they first announced the Xbox accessibility spotlight in the store, it was there right on the main page, and then it's almost like it disappeared. So now I have to literally search for accessibility, and then I can find the spotlight, but I'm not finding the actual tag right on the main store page.
So that is something they need to improve on, because that would be frustrating. Matt and I, we recently did a video on how the store needs to be improved, but we didn't even see it from your lens of what actually could also adjust to improvements. And for those that don't know, is there any specific games that are currently, because I have checked out the accessibility features on The Last of Us 2 on the PlayStation, which games or which developers do the best job on the Xbox Series consoles?
Right now, I'm still messing around with a lot of games, but I've gotten into Forza Horizon the new one, of course.
Yeah.
I could not get into Halo. It's just it's not my game style.
Yeah.
But I did try it because of all the accessibility features. I'm a sports fan, so EA did an extremely great job with Madden 21. I have not
Nice.
played 22 yet, but it's Madden 21. They did a really great job with it. Narration right from the main menu right onto the field. So when it's time to make a play call, it's actually telling me X or Y or B is for this play call.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, I was extremely happy with that. Now I just need NHL to do the same thing, some way. Yeah.
Oh, that's sad that they don't do it for all their games. I did notice on this year's Far Cry 6, I don't know if you know, it
Yeah.
narrates
Yep.
the menu no matter what.
Yeah,
like
and
they
more-
made that they made it a standard, not something you can turn off and on.
Yeah, I even
Yeah,
noticed that too.
I haven't had a chance to play that one yet.
So I'm guessing there is a ton of accessibility features in that game because the menu it's set on narration. As soon as you turn the game on, it's like press start. It tells you what to do, like when you're moving around on the screen. So I can kind of get a sense of what you're speaking to. If you could pick the number one thing that you think Xbox does well with regards to accessibility, what would that be?
Like in general?
Yeah. Like you're saying to me like you were on PlayStation, you love that they did this for Naughty Dog, and it's well documented. I believe they won an award at the Game Awards for it. But Xbox has made a huge push towards this and said that all their first party studios must have accessibility features put into their games. They're the first one to put it into the stores. They're trying to stick by their words and saying gaming is for everyone. Has it made your life easier?
Yes, especially when it comes to games. I appreciate a lot that Xbox is doing and the fact that they keep pushing developers to implement the accessibility. It's going to take a while, obviously, because it's not that simple.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that they are pushing and developers are trying, I do, however, believe it's going to take a whole community because, like myself and a few others, we all see differently and we all have different ups and downs with our vision. So say narration works for me or Zoom works for someone else, it may not work for me. Like the Zoom feature on in the Xbox, I use it, but I don't use it because it uses the left and right trigger, and while you need those in a lot of the games, so you gotta constantly shut it off just to play the game. But yeah, it's just I appreciate Xbox and Microsoft a lot for what they're doing for accessibility in all terms.
Court, do you want to take a look at the article here? So we
Yeah,
have the Xbox accessibility article, but I know there's a couple of things you wanted to touch on here.
Yeah, so there's a couple features that I wanted to know. Like you spoke about the magnifier, but they have the high contrast or the color filters or the night mode. Would those even help you?
I personally don't like the high contrast. It's too bright for me, so I keep my system on the I guess it's called night mode.
Mm-hmm.
I tried the bright contrast, and it was just like putting the sun right in my eyeball. So for me, that feature doesn't work. I have everything, even my iPad and iPhone. It's all set on night mode so that it's darker, but I increase the screen resolution a little bit. But I never use the high contrast if I can help it.
And then they have the speech to text, which obviously that is something you do use. The transcript converts player speech and such if you are in a party chat or any sort of speech to text. Now, with regards when you were playing The Last of Us 2, were you using the mode where they made your player character, they made the enemies bright red and you made your player character blue and everything else was gray in the background and it would highlight things based by color?
No.
Like what accessibility mode were you using?
That one I was actually just using the narration and the pings, so that would let me know which way I have to go.
Yeah.
That was the first game that I was able to play sitting on my couch 10 feet away from my TV and actually enjoy it.
Nice.
So the only two features that I really used was the pinging and just the narration, because the majority of that game is all narrated anyways from the in-story content.
Yeah.
So I just relied on the pings.
What about with you mentioned Forza Horizon 5, because that is like it's won awards. It's done incredible work with accessibility features within the game, even updating it to have sign language into the game itself. So like they have done, Playground Games has done a incredible job, I think, with making their title extremely accessible across the board. What about it in Forza? Because Forza for me Marcus was like my game of the year. I put so many hours in that thing. I loved it. What about Forza like really stood out for you from an accessibility perspective?
The fact that I was able to play a racing game again without, I guess, worrying about too much, because I like I never really played racing games, but the Grand Theft Auto series, the driving, I love to just drive around the city, just because, well, I'm never going to be able to drive legally. So playing Forza and using I'm not sure what mode it is, but it is an accessibility feature. The arrows on the road that would literally, if I got off track or hit a tree or whatever, it would put me back on the route, and I could just sit there and drive, and the computer would actually help me stay on the road. Now, granted, the slightest slip of your thumb, you would slip off that arrow, but the fact that I was able to play a racing game with thousands of other people again, that was amazing to me. The only thing I would have them fix, though, with the on-screen narration, is there are certain menus that does not work. That's about the only thing I would have, if they could fix that.
Now, we look at all the accessibility features that Microsoft has implemented, and you've said it yourself. It's allowed you to play video games again, and I'm sure that moment for you, even when you played The Last of Us, or when you got an Xbox series of consoles and you were able to start playing video games again, it probably was a fantastic feeling for you. What is something though that you think they can improve upon? Because I look at their accessibility features they have. They have narrator, they have magnifier, they have captioning, high contrast, night mode, controller, game and chat transcript, and then audio. Is there, out of those, you use the narrator. How can they improve the narrator so that it's easier for you to play video games?
To improve it, like, okay, the built-in narrator on Xbox, there's an option to have it read some game menus. It's not implemented in all games, and I'm hoping that day will come. For instance, I believe it's Flight Simulator. It's either Flight Simulator or not Halo. Sea of Thieves. The narrator from the actual Microsoft Xbox is the one that's reading to it. I wish that would be in all games, because there's a lot of titles that does not have that option yet. So, for instance, the upcoming WWE 2K, I doubt it's going to have any accessibility. I hope it does. To be able to turn the game on without using a narration, it's doable, but it's not doable. Yeah, I pretty much have to kiss my screen to see the menus. So if Microsoft can do anything that would improve the narration, have it so that it's reading a lot more titles than it does now.
Have you ever used their disability answer desk from their webpage?
Not yet. I'm slowly getting into all that. I literally turn my Xbox on every day just to go into the Insider hub to find out what's new for updates and see if there's anything I can do as far as input goes. I haven't done any of the reviewed articles yet.
Well, no, right, and unfortunately, you might not even be able to see it properly because of your the accessibility feature might not be. Maybe they don't have the speech to text on the webpage. I would think they do. It says disability answer. The disability answer desk is where customers with disabilities can get support with Microsoft Office, Xbox accessibility, and Windows Xbox accounts and billing support. So, like, if you had any questions or you wanted things fixed, they actually have a section for that. I'm actually shocked. It's at the bottom though. It is at the very bottom. But they do have a whole web page and section to either offer solutions for them or to ask for help with things that you need inside their consoles.
I would probably use my iPad for that, just for the simple fact is I have not tried out the browser on the Xbox yet. I rely on my iPad for all the browsing stuff I do.
Yeah, fair enough.
So Marcus, as we're kind of finishing up here, but I wanted to ask if you were like looking into kind of like look at a crystal ball of 5 years down the road, what do you think are the kind of big pillar changes or updates or improvements like you need to see from Xbox on the accessibility side? So if we're looking at 5 years down the road, because I think they've done a great job of leading the charge on this to try and make these improvements, but it's obviously there's stuff that clearly needs to be improved upon. But what do you think? Like, what would you like to see if it's 5 years down the road? What do you think that they need to do on a larger scale?
I think on a larger scale to get Microsoft and all their games up to, I don't want to say up to par, but up to the standards for everybody.
Hmm.
One thing they need to do is make sure there's more than one or two people voicing their opinions on every disability, because vision's not the only one.
Yep.
So that we really need to, as a gaming community, anybody that wants to play and thinks they cannot play, we need to get everybody to voice their opinions, because that's what's really going to make gaming publishers and Microsoft really stand out a lot more.
I think that's a good point, though, too. Sorry to interrupt, but I just, on that, I agree with you. I think that the accessibility community is massive. And what would be great is that if they would spotlight and highlight more through like the Xbox Ambassadors program, things like that. And I know that folks are in there. However, I'm with you. It's not always going to be sight, or it's not always going to be one limitation or one accessibility feature, and just that one person maybe to be kind of the voice of it all. You know what I mean? Like, I'm with you. I would like to see them do more, because I think of like the controller that they created, like the pad, and I look at that and I'm like, that's an amazing thing that they have done. However, I don't see it highlighted enough with, like Marcus, like you're saying, like reviews and actual hands-on.
It's almost like they have it. They have the Xbox Ambassador community. They have the Gamers Club. Well, they need an accessibility community.
Yep.
They need to have your voice heard more, because it's just as important as everybody else's. I know with the controller, geez, you've seen other uses for it. I watched a whole CBC documentary on how they're using that controller at hospitals for things that are not just video games, and that's amazing. But we need to hear more about that. Like, it's just, it's something that's not shone a light as much. You know, all we ever talk about is acquisitions and new games, and sometimes we need to talk about gaming for everyone and really mean it. And they do. Like, let's be real here. Xbox is going above and beyond what other manufacturers and consoles and PC companies are doing, but they can always improve, right?
Absolutely. Speaking of adaptive controllers, I'm also hoping I bought a controller, an extra controller for the old system, because they actually do work on the new systems. And I'm hoping to be able to put some sort of braille on certain buttons, because I was thinking about it. And if you're new to games and you're going through the controls to learn them on your Xbox, you're going to be button mashing until you find the right button that you need to push. So if there's a way to put even raise the X a little bit so you can feel it, or a little bit of braille, I'm hoping to be able to do that.
Or even in their design lab. Like, I understand they make these controllers that, because I'm looking at them right now, and they have the two can play as one right on their webpage. And I never thought of that. Yeah, I look at it, it's X, Y, B, and it's different colors, but they're smooth. So even in their design lab,
why not just tighten the buttons and expand them even? Make it
or even have them raised. Like, if you're in the design lab, you can have it so you can order a braille controller.
Yes.
Like, that's a great idea. Like, that is, they allow button mapping, they allow all these things, but what happens if they could just have it so, like, the X, Y, B, A buttons are raised so you know what they are, and then even the share and the start, those buttons there, those are raised so you know what they are. So when the text to speech tells you to press this button, you can literally press that button.
Yeah,
because I understand their adaptive controller has braille at the top, to my knowledge.
Yeah, I'm not too sure.
Yeah, it does. I'm looking at it right now. So it does. You would be able to feel it, but it doesn't look like the share button is. But that's the pad, though. That's the But yes, that's a great idea.
Yeah, it make a lot of people's lives a little easier, especially if you're new to gaming or getting back into gaming. It's a lot better than button mashing, trying to find the right button until you do. By then, the game's over.
Fair enough.
Markus, we want to thank you so much for coming on the show and giving up your time here and talk more about accessibility, because I think it's great, again, that what Microsoft is doing, and I think what we're kind of all agreeing on is that a little bit more can be done, but at least they are kind of leading the charge and trying to make some improvements. But
hopefully this can get this out there that
yeah,
there is more that can be done.
absolutely.
And hopefully, thank you, Markus.
Thank you very much for having me.